we're moving very, very quickly in a direction where uh, we have a strategic Bitcoin reserve,
Hmm.
where the largest entity in the world, which is the US government, is buying Bitcoin. And so if you're not buying Bitcoin and your government is buying Bitcoin, and you're sort of still on the Peter Schiff train that this is not real money, you got to go see a doctor because you know, obviously it's real if the U.S. government's buying it. So it doesn't matter how much the U.S. government buys.
Yeah.
The fact that we have a strategic reserve is all you need to know. That is all you need to know.
The Bitcoin frenzy is intensifying as the leading cryptocurrency approaches the coveted $100,000 mark, and Fred Krueger, celebrated author of the Big Bitcoin book and a staunch Bitcoin advocate, has made a bold prediction. According to Krueger, the financial world is on the cusp of a seismic shift. He paints a staggering picture of the global financial landscape, with $46 trillion tied up in equities, another $46 trillion in bonds, and $5 to $6 trillion sitting idle in cash. Yet, Bitcoin, with a market cap of $1.5 trillion and ETFs holding just $100 billion, currently makes up a mere 0.31% of total global financial asset. Krueger believes that this is just a blip compared to what's to come. He likens the Bitcoin market to a dam about to break, set to unleash a trillion-dollar tidal wave in the next 4 years. So, what's driving this unprecedented surge? The rise of Bitcoin-focused ETFs has simplified the investment process, breaking down barriers that once kept traditional investors, pension funds, retirement accounts, and institutional players on the sidelines. As Bitcoin pushes toward $100,000, Kruger's vision becomes even clearer. We're not just witnessing a bull run, but the early stages of a financial revolution that could redefine the world's economic order. To dive deeper into Fred Krueger's insights on investing in Bitcoin, let's watch more clips from the interview.
Stop. You don't have time. Don't miss out this 2025 bull run. Educate yourself first ahead of the crowd. We have created the ultimate step-by-step crypto cheat guide that will guide you this bull run. Unlock the secrets of crypto and make smarter investments today. Now by clicking on the link below to get your exclusive copy just under $10.
There's about 46, 47 trillion dollars worth of stocks out there, an equivalent amount of bonds, and 5 or 6 trillion of cash out there. And just in the U.S. alone, there's $100 trillion of financial assets. Um, Bitcoin right now is a $1.5 trillion asset class, but of that 1.5 trillion, TradFi only owns about $100 billion worth, which is kind of the value of all the ETFs, which is about a million coins, and MicroStrategy, right? So
Mhm.
in a world where they have $100 billion of it, but their total pie is $100 trillion, their actual asset allocation is 1/10%. And actually, it's less than that because Bitcoin's a global asset, and the U.S. doesn't have more than a third of the total global pie.
Mhm.
So we're looking at something like 0.3 tenths of a percent of allocation to this asset class. We're going to north of a percent very quickly.
Yeah,
Uh,
I
so
think I
so we're
think
we're looking at $1 trillion coming into this asset over the next, let's call it 4 years. But it's if this money's coming in, you don't really want to be the last guy in the pool. Yes, there's some leverage with MicroStrategy buying a little bit of. I mean, all the amount of money that's come into this market is inconsequential relative to the amount of money that's about to come into this market. It just doesn't matter. So, again, there's these big buckets of money in the world, right? So there's self-directed people going to their stock, their portfolio, their account at Merrill Lynch, and just clicking a few buttons and picking up some exposure to MSTR or one of the new ETFs. That's a third. You have
Mhm.
institutions like pension funds, retirement accounts, and things like that. That's another third. And then you have managed accounts where wealth managers are allocating on behalf of their clients. That's a third. And none of these things they're just like dipping the very top bit of their toe in the water. That's 1/10%. They are not involved yet. So, it's sort of like the dam there's a little bit of water, there's a little fissure in the dam, and
Mhm.
we're seeing some water drip through the dam. and we're going, oh my God, is this how much is the entire dam is about to break. Looking at the chart of Bitcoin in the past, I don't think informs you very well as to where it's about to go. We are about to have a breaking dam moment where TradFi has finally awoken to this asset, and number one, understands the asset, understands the opportunity, and number two, can now for the last 9 months invest in this asset. That the ETF is live. They can push a button, they can get exposure. So I think we have the catalyst for this move, which is the ETF. That's the necessary and sufficient condition. Before that, traditional investors couldn't buy Bitcoin easily. Sure, they could open an account at Coinbase, but that's a very small percentage of people who are going to do that. Most people, they have their assets in a brokerage account or in a bank, and for them to wire money to this thing called Coinbase and buy Bitcoin it's a stretch. And it's even more of a stretch to tell them you got to put a private, get a seed phrase, copy it down, store it in a safe, get a ledger, and hold your own Bitcoin yourself. That's not going to happen for most.
No, it's a
very
good point.
They're not going to do that.
Fred Krueger emphasizes a game-changing moment in the Bitcoin landscape: the U.S. government's strategic Bitcoin reserve. He argues that this move is the ultimate stamp of legitimacy for Bitcoin, questioning if the government is buying Bitcoin, shouldn't you? This seismic shift highlights Bitcoin's enduring dominance in the financial world. Krueger advises abandoning a short-term trading mindset and embracing Bitcoin as a long-term powerhouse, likely to be the best-performing asset you'll ever own. He challenges the traditional advice of allocating just 1 to 2% of your portfolio to Bitcoin, suggesting that such caution fails to recognize Bitcoin's transformative potential. With the government signaling its approval, Krueger urges investors to reassess their allocations. This endorsement is poised to trigger a wave of investment, stabilizing Bitcoin and making it more appealing as adoption continues to grow. As volatility decreases, the ride will become smoother for all participants. Rather than focusing on short-term price fluctuations, Krueger encourages you to consider the bigger picture. How much should you invest before the market undergoes a complete transformation? The government's involvement marks the dawn of a new financial era, one that you can still be a part of before the opportunity passes. The clock is ticking, and now is the time to act. Let's go back to the interview and hear more insights from Fred Krueger.
We're moving very, very quickly in a direction where we have a strategic Bitcoin reserve, where the largest entity in the world, which is the US government, is buying Bitcoin. And so if you're not buying Bitcoin and your government is buying Bitcoin, and you're sort of still on the Peter Schiff train that this is not real money, you got to go see a doctor, because obviously it's real if the U.S. government's buying it. So it doesn't matter how much the U.S. government buys.
Yeah.
The fact that we have a strategic reserve is all you need to know. That is all you need to know, and that means that if you're a company, your company needs to buy Bitcoin. If you're a country, your country needs to buy Bitcoin. If you're an individual, you need to start front running that as fast as you can, right? You just got the go ahead. So you need to start your allocation, whatever it is way too low, So that's the mental shift. Here's the first problem is, if you think about trading Bitcoin, you're in the wrong. You've already said the wrong thing. Okay. You should not trade Bitcoin, period, full stop, ever. Okay. Yeah. So the fact that you're asking about trading Bitcoin is wrong. This is probably going to be, it will be the best asset, the best performing asset of your entire life. And, if you're trying to pick where it's going in the next 3 months, I have no idea. But this thing is going to go so much higher that the only thing you need to do is, how can I possibly stomach the inevitable volatility that's going to happen, and how much of a position can I take? Now, I would sort of say, if your number is 10% of your portfolio or less, you're probably thinking the wrong number, right? You're probably in the wrong zip code. Okay, so if you're saying 1 to 2%, I mean, great. You've just seen the best asset of all times, and it with the best catalyst for growth of all times, and you're coming up with 2%. What's happening with the other 90%? At some point, we're going to have a tsunami of. There's a tsunami comes first, right? Which is, we get this thing in everybody's portfolios, and then the question is, once we have this sort of phase shift of, that we're about to see in the next year, I would say, then we're going to start to see that volatility come down, and people are going to take advantage of dips and buy them, and more people are going to put money in, and we're going to have more steady eddy. But not now, right? Right now, it's exactly the opposite. The biggest opportunity right now, and the biggest opportunity in your portfolio, is Bitcoin. It's how much Bitcoin do you own? I think the problem with all these other coins is you can get very distracted very quickly, right? You can say, well, what about Solana? Well, then what about, Avalanche? And what about Near? And what about Sui and Aptos? And, and you can spend the next month just getting lost in trying to understand all these different protocols, and if they're cheap or if they're rich, or you can spend all this time on that, right? But I think that it's a distraction. What you really need to do is figure out the main question, which is what percent of the portfolio of your portfolio is in Bitcoin. That's the number one thing right now. I really, if you already hold these coins, I would actually sell them and buy Bitcoin. Personally, I would just simplify your life.
Fred Krueger underscores the significant impact of recent election results on Bitcoin's rise, suggesting that the best possible scenario for Bitcoin has unfolded, with values potentially reaching $100,000 or more. He highlights the growing awareness among investors, driven by ETFs and major acquisitions by companies like MicroStrategy. Krueger anticipates that Bitcoin's allocation in portfolios will soon exceed 1%, as traditional investors currently hold less than 0.31% of their assets in Bitcoin. He recommends focusing on Bitcoin as the core investment, treating other cryptocurrencies more as leisure rather than serious investments. Krueger also predicts that Bitcoin's volatility will decrease as more investors enter the market. He advises against overthinking or overtrading, instead encouraging a focus on long-term gains. For those exploring other cryptocurrencies, he suggests treating them like gaming or leisure, allocating only a small portion of wealth. He believes that the proposed Bitcoin reserve will move forward, with bipartisan support and the Democratic Party becoming more crypto-friendly. With Gary Gensler's potential retirement, Krueger expects the SEC to become more accommodating to crypto. Looking ahead, Krueger is optimistic, forecasting a crypto-friendly administration and SEC, and Bitcoin's price reaching $93,000. He encourages investors to prioritize their Bitcoin allocation and avoid unnecessary volatility. As we conclude, what is your approach? Are you buying, holding, or selling Bitcoin during this bull run? Share your thoughts in the comments below. For more Daily Dose Crypto news, check out these 2 awesome videos on your screen. Click now and we will see you on the next video.